The Opinion with Michael J. Today we start with David Frum. And the topic of the day. What is the topic of the day? Well, the topic of the day, Bridget Brink on Trump, his betrayal of Ukraine, why she resigned. Now, this is an issue. Ukraine is being thrown under the bus by Trump. And for the most part, for 100%, people just assume all sorts of different machinations of thought to try to justify Trump's actions, which is extremely hard to do, knowing that the man has no order, runs by chaos, seat of the pants, and narcissistic demagogue behavioral patterns. And there you have it. We've encapsulated it. And that's what I stand by. So let's look at here. On this episode of the David Frum Show, The Atlantic's David Frum opens with a warning. The United States' support for Ukraine is collapsing under Donald Trump's second term, which is very true. And with it, the global system of peace and security that has protected Americans for decades. Let's further expand upon that narrative. It is the global system of peace and security for the Western world, which is at issue here. So David explains what Trump's latest actions reveal about his motivations and why Ukraine's survival may now depend on the outcome of the 2024 election. Well, it's a slam dunk narrative here, and it's easy to figure out which way this is going. And the only way it's going to change is if you move Trump out of the way. That is the de facto action that needs to take place in order to change the way this Ukraine-Russian war is going to, in what direction it's going to go in. So you're going to ask me, well, what's your relevance to this here? And I'll explain right here.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The David Frum Show. I'm David Frum, a staff writer at The Atlantic. I'm speaking to you today from the offices of the Picton Gazette, one of the oldest continuously published newspapers in all of Canada. It's Canada Day week here in...
So let me explain something. Now, Picton and the Picton Gazette is an area in Ontario, province of Ontario. Now, to give you an idea of my relationship with Picton, is I knew a circuit, the head of the circuit, for the he was a judge for the matrimonial division of the Superior Court by the name of Bob Walmsley. So Bob and Ruth Walmsley were friends of the family. So, just to give you a little insight.
In Canada, and many of our usual facilities are closed, so I'm very grateful to the editors and publishers of the Gazette for making their offices available to me to record this opening discussion. My guest this week will be Ambassador Bridget Brink, who was appointed by President Biden as ambassador to Ukraine and then served under President Trump until her resignation earlier this year. Ambassador Brink is now running for Congress for the Democratic nomination in Michigan's 7th District. Our conversation was recorded before she made that announcement.
And this is very interesting, but nonetheless, why my interest in this topic is because I have a personal interest in this topic because it has affected me. And I've also respect David Frum's viewpoints and perspective and his way of communicating those insights and perspectives. So how I know his family, I actually met his mother a few times, Barbara Frum, when she worked for the CBC, when I was training odd hours. And in order to do that, I was driving cab before going to play hockey in the United States of America. I also knew of his father, Murray Frum, and that was due to a marriage to a scion of a patriarch of the family compact. They were partners in a family business with Sir John Beverley Robinson. And his son John Beverley Robinson actually drafted the British North American Act of 1843 and presented it to Queen Victoria. So this is how things work. So nonetheless, my point here now is this is how I became aware of the Trump-Russia connection and was actually witnessed by myself. And the original contact was through a family member, and it was originally with Boris Yeltsin in or about 1992, which subsequently created the oligarch system, set up the super yachts and how to structure the corporations for that, and the oligarch system, which eventually put in place a controller to handle the interests of the parties of interest, and the controller was a guy by the name of Vladimir Putin. So this is how Trump is involved with this situation. And also, that particular situation I'm explaining morphed into the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, and the Pandora Papers. And it not only included laundering Russian money, but also for the Colombian and Mexican drug cartels. So, take it away, Mr. Frum.
Before I turn to our conversation about Ukraine and its struggle for independence and about the inconsistent and unfavorable attitude of the Trump administration toward Ukraine that she observed as ambassador, I want to say a few personal words about what is at stake in this Ukrainian cause. The United States has built since 1945 an extraordinary system of peace and security embracing much of the planet. It is a system from which many countries benefit, but Americans too. That Americans do not need to learn a second language in most cases, that they can travel about the world with a feeling of security, that when they do business under legal systems that are often inspired by the American example, that when they travel as tourists or as students or as in any capacity, they can put down a credit card, and if they have a dispute, have that credit card dispute adjudicated, usually under American law. All of those things that we take for granted that as we move about a world that is ever more accommodating to the American way of life and to American interests, all of that is one of the prizes for the American investment in global peace and security. Now, that system of peace and security received one of its severest tests when Russia accelerated its attack on Ukraine. The war began in 2014 with the attack on Crimea and the occupation of Crimea. But in February of 2022, Russia made a direct lunge for the capital, Kyiv. The heroism and endurance of Ukrainian soldiers beat back the Russians, and Ukraine has continued to fight for its independence to this day. This is a war not about boundaries, but about Ukraine's sovereign existence. The Russians and President Putin, their dictator, have made it very clear that what they are offended by is that Ukraine imagines it has any right to exist as an independent nation at all. As Putin has told many people, including American interviewers, including pet American interviewers like Tucker Carlson, when Tucker Carlson interviewed Ukraine.
Let's be clear. Putin is hazing, is creating a different narrative to benefit himself and his interests. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I do mean by that is, like, you have to understand the dissolution or the breakdown of the USSR created what they call a Commonwealth independent states. And it included three: Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. And that was referred to as the CIS. Also, Bill Clinton in 1994 did an agreement with the Ukrainians to provide security in order for the Ukrainians to rid themselves of their nuclear weapons. In 2014, with Crimea and the invasion by Russia, the fact that Obama did not step right in and correct that, because that was the obligation of the Americans to Ukraine based on the 1994 agreement by Bill Clinton. But Obama did not set that straight line and make sure that that red line, or straight line I referred to it, but it was a red line, once Russia crossed it and invaded Crimea, that's when the Americans should have forcibly stepped in and stopped that immediately. Full stop. But they didn't. And that's why we're in this position we are in now in 2025. And what we do have is Trump being influenced, you could say an operative of the Russian government under Putin, due to his relationship with Putin, going back to when he finally got into the stream with Trump, I'm speaking of, would be late 1990s and early 2000s up to about 2015. And Trump continued thereafter on his own for reasons that I'm not going to explain herewith at this moment. But nonetheless, let's move on. Let's see what Mr. Frum has to say. And this is why this is so important to take care of Ukraine and not let Russia take Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin. What this war is about from Putin's point of view is that Ukraine is not a country. It's just part of Russia. It has no history. It has no language. It has no literature. It has no right to be any kind of separate people at all. It is a subset of it is little Russia in his mind.
Also, another thing that is very disturbing that you should be aware of, just recently, it's July 2025, that recently Poland had elections where they elected a prime minister, which is under, I forget the main guy's name, Stolsk or something like that, which creates a real problem for Poland and how they govern with respect to Europe and NATO. And Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security, actually went to Poland on behalf of Donald Trump to make sure that they had a proxy that handled Russian interests in Poland, and they won. Kristi Noem was promoting that party, that person, on behalf of Donald Trump, and that party was on behalf of, what's his name? Mr. Putin, Vladimir Putin. And this is what you really should know. And this is dangerous, and the connection with the guy in Serbia, Kushner and Trump Jr., trying to do developments throughout the East, Latvia, etc., Serbia. And this is very important that you people know this.
Not as fully as it should. It often seems that President Biden's policy was to say, what does Ukraine need? Give them half and give it late. Tanks and airplanes and other kinds of assistance always arrived too little amounts and too slow in time to turn the tide of war when the war was ready to be turned, especially in the summer of 23. It often seemed that there was a lack of urgency in the Biden administration, that they never took it seriously, that November 24 would be, among other things, a referendum on Ukraine's survival. And that if there was anything that was left undone by the United States as of November 24, there was a real chance that the next administration, which might be Donald Trump's, would turn off the flow of aid and doom Ukraine altogether. If the war was not won by November 24.
Furthermore to what David Frum's stating here, it's July 3, 2025, and a couple days ago, Trump ordered Pete Hegseth to stop any more armament shipments to the Ukraine. And these shipments that were supposed to go to the Ukraine were shipments that are still part of the agreement with the former Congress under Biden. which any subsequent administration is supposed to honor, but this administration seems to get away with stuff that no other administration can with the support of the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, which is rather troubling, to say the least. So now Trump has used, well, our stock supply has gone low, so we're not going to ship any more to Ukraine. But, you know, they still send armaments to Israel to bomb Gaza, so go figure.
November of 2024, it might never be won at all. But that lack of urgency was a flaw from a generally positive policy. President Biden did seem to understand what was at stake and did want to help, even if it was never in time and never enough.
That's right.
But now, in the Trump presidency, we are in a very different world, a world of outright hostility to Ukraine, where Donald Trump's goal seems to be to pressure Ukraine, sometimes risking Ukrainian lives, sometimes dooming Ukrainian lives, pressure Ukraine to a negotiated form of submission to Russia. I don't know that we have yet or ever will get to the bottom of the reason for Donald Trump's strange attachment to Russia.
But I just explained it, and this is the point of this video. The attraction Trump has to Russia. It was money. Long-time business relationship. Family member I know connected Trump to a massive funnel of cash that helped maintain Trump's ostentatious lifestyle. And that's really basically what it is. Now, the family member I know had an operative, and that operative always used Middle East connections to do the dirty work. So now you may be able to connect some dots to why Kushner and a major building in New York was helped bail out the Kushner family and has connections back to UAE. So this is where we're at here.
The why question, it's been speculated about psychological blackmail, cronyism. It's been speculated about forever. And I have to admit, I've sometimes have joined in some of the speculation. But I think always we need to have skepticism about it. We don't know.
No, we should not have any skepticism whatsoever, because I witnessed the connection. Full stop. No more. There's no more discussion on this. We're going to move up later into this video, up to this Miss Brink, Bridget Brink, wonderful lady, made a heroic effort to try to correct things, but you know, she's limited by what she can do. So we're going to move on to the 42-minute point in this video, and we'll take it from there. Okay.
Is it that we don't understand, or that we do understand and our hearts can't accept the answer?
And that's a very important question that David Frum's putting to Bridget Brink here. And she's going to try to be politically correct here. But the reality is, she should be saying she was stymied by the administration of the Trump administration. Full stop. Made her position, her effectuality to function in her position, ineffective. And she gave up out of frustration.
I think it's a different administration, and it's a threat to our future. And that's why I've come out. That's why I left. That's why I'm speaking publicly. I think it's bad for America to be where we are. It's not who we are. And we have to be on the right side of history. There are very few pivotal moments in history. And as someone who has now done this for 28 years, I think it's vital that we stand on the right side.
Ambassador Brink, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck with the book. I look forward so much to reading it as you work on it, and good luck to, I know you have some important personal decisions to make and career decisions to make about what comes next for you, and we're all watching those with keen interest, and we all hope that your service to the United States has not ended, and that the United States that you believed in has not ended either.
I don't think it has. I'm sure it hasn't. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Has it ended? No, it has not ended. It is going to be broken, and that is a fact. It will be broken. It will have to rebuild. What we're going to see here with Trump, like, you know, how long is he going to last? Unless, and this is where the thing is, Trump uses tactics. And I'll give you an example of these tactics. right here, as a matter of fact. Just I was going to cut it off, but we're gonna bring this to your
enter Elon, and also he's going to be impressed by Elon because Elon is so rich. So
Right.
I think that Elon went in with that level of certainty. Obviously, he could have an impact on Donald Trump, and many people have felt that before. And it never turns out that way. You cannot have an impact on someone who has an absolute inability, among other things, to listen to anyone.
So you have always predicted that between Elon and Donald Trump would always win. Do you still think that? Do you think that Elon actually has the smarts to outwit Donald Trump and cause him really grave damage now that, as you say, this is a blood sport?
Well, let me add another corollary to that. Donald Trump is self-destructive. So when Donald Trump loses, which is often, I mean, he lost,
Yeah, it's frequently, right?
lost the
Frequently.
presidency.
Right.
It is usually because of things that he has done. So right now, he has just set himself up with this big, beautiful bill to lose everything. I mean, he has, by forcing Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina, to decide he's going to leave politics, and he's partly doing that because Trump has gone after him. You know, here's a guy who said, I'm going to vote against this bill. These are my reasons. So Trump steps out again, social media, to demonize the guy, to vilify the guy, to say, I am going to primary you, I'm going to destroy you. You know, I mean, again, this Trump language, it's always
It's vindictive.
It's either you are the best,
Right.
or
You are the worst.
or the worst, and I'm going to destroy you. You know, right now, Elon, he's destroying Elon. You know, after so many months of Elon was the
Smartest man in the world.
So he went after Tillis, and Tillis said life is too short, basically. I'm getting out of this, thereby creating an open seat in North Carolina, which is a very purple state, and it is very possible that the Democrats will.
Why Ukraine's going to be thrown under the bus, and this is why Canada and Europe got to quit dithering, because expecting the United States of America to actually take a position of authority and action against the Russians with Ukraine, it will be and is a grave mistake. This is where Europe has to get more. This Keir Starmer has got to get some balls and spring into action instead of pussyfooting around the way he has been. And the Europeans, your EU unit, all of them need to get actively involved and step in, and Canada has to as well, in order to correct this Ukraine-Russia thing. This has got to be stopped now and corrected without Ukraine having to give up any land. And that's where we're at. Questions, comments, greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. This is Michael J. from The Opinion. Love and peace to everyone. Talk to you all soon. Ciao for now.